Hi guys, welcome back, or welcome for those who've never been here. Today I want to talk about, or we're going to talk about burnout, and I'm going to go over a story of mine when I went through burnout. Now, I didn't know what it was at the time, but I've since figured out that it was burnout. And I think those of us with trauma are more susceptible to burnout. And our burnout might be a little bit different than the average person's, but not that different. So, as I've said in previous posts, and for those who don't know, I was going to school as a social service worker, and I was also working part time as a personal support worker, so taking care of generally the elderly, helping with their activities of daily living, companionship, whatever their needs are. Uh, so I didn't have a lot of clients because I had a lot of school, but I did, you know, I did the best I could with what I had. But I was also feeling like I was underappreciated as a PSW because I wasn't getting paid much more than minimum wage, and I wanted to branch out and see what my options were to try to get paid a little better. So I was looking at different options of different agencies that I could go to that would pay me a little better, pay me more what I'm worth. So those are important details to know. So early on, I found myself questioning God. And for those who don't know me, which are most of you, I'm a Christian woman. I don't go to church for reasons that we'll get into at some point, but I do have a relationship with God. I am a Christian woman, huge believer in God. And I was at the point where I was even telling clients that God should be embarrassed about what he has down here on earth. And that if I was God, I would be embarrassed, and I wouldn't want to acknowledge that this was my mess because this world is such a horrible place. And I didn't catch on that there was anything wrong with that, and that anger and bitterness was as big of a deal as it was. But that was also just in like Christmas, January, and my favorite song was Stevie Wonder's, oh, I can't remember the name of it, but one of his Christmas songs, and I would play it over and over again and just get so angry that 1960, this is how we thought, and nothing's gotten better. And I just had a really angry and negative look on the world. And so I should have picked up that there was something wrong, but I was functioning, and to me, that was awesome because I couldn't function in the past. I had many hospital stays. Whatever. I just was not functional, but now I was functioning. I was going to school and I was working, and to me, that was like gold. So I didn't really feel that there was anything wrong. So I ended up joining this other agency, which I'm not going to name. And I didn't know how to approach things with them in the sense that they have, when you're a PSW, most of the agencies that I've experienced, because I have been with more than one trying to figure out where I fit in, they're so desperate for PSWs and they're so in need of good PSWs, especially that they kind of, if you say your availability is X, they expect that you are their sole, that you're theirs and they own you between the times that you're available. I don't go for that. If I say I'm available and you book me, then I am yours while you've booked me, and that's it. So they would book me and I'd find out my time. And as a trauma survivor, I would need to psych myself up. I have major social anxiety due to the trauma. So I would have to psych myself up and be like, okay, I'm going to go out of my house and go see these people. I'm seeing so and so, so and so, and so and so. I'm going to be out of my house for 3 hours or 5 hours. That's fine. I can deal with this. But then they would throw halfway through my day. They would throw me a monkey wrench, and they'd be like, "Oh, by the way, you're also expected to see this person and this person." And the anxiety would go through the roof because I have not set myself up for these other two people. I expect that I'm going to be home by 4 o'clock, and I'm not expecting to be home at 5:30 or 6 or whatever it would bring me to at that point. So my anxiety would go through the roof. Well, I was out on my birthday. They'd done this numerous times. But I had been out on my birthday with my friend and my sister, and they had done this again. And I panicked because they didn't just add one or two people, they added like a whole bunch of time. And I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I snapped. And I quit the job right then and there, which they were furious with me for. But I couldn't handle them adding that, and I couldn't say no. There was no saying no. So the only way for me, I couldn't function, I couldn't go. So the only way to get out of it was to quit, which, really sucked and I really hated it. But I was in a full-fledged panic and I didn't know what to do. And I don't have supports in my life. I haven't for years, except very briefly. Well, I think it was brief because I still would have liked to see her. A couple years ago, just a year or so before this happened, but they were taken away from us, and we'll get into that story another time. So I wrote an email and I quit. And again, not the best way to quit, but I was in a full-fledged panic. So that was kind of my hitting rock bottom. And I had been in bed. My thoughts were very self-destructive. And I had made a plan of how I was going to die. So I will make sure that I put there's a trigger warning on this somewhere so that you guys know. But I had in my mind, the perfect plan. And I had called my sister to say goodbye and to make sure that everything was, all settled. And I was going to wander off and go do it. But I'm not exactly sure how, because part of trauma is dissociation. And so there's lots of areas in my life I don't remember, but somewhere along the line, she figured out where I was and sent the police to me. So the wonderful police here in Durham sat and were like talking to me and said they needed to take me to the hospital under the Mental Health Act, which I understand. I know how that works. It's not my first time. And in that, they said, I'm sitting there calmly. I'm not moving. I'm not doing anything. I have no energy. My energies were absolutely depleted. I barely had enough energy to carry through with my plan, but I was rather determined enough to do that, or I thought I was. So I was sitting there with them, and they're like, if you run, we're going to taser you. And I'm just thinking in my head, I don't have the energy to walk to your car. And you think I'm going to run? Welcome to Durham Region. This is why I don't have a lot of respect for the police here in Durham Region, because they're full of threats and they're full of power and control. And it becomes a power struggle, not a let me help you. We know you're going through a hard time. Let's see if we can make it better. It's just simply power and control. So, needless to say, I walked to the car with them. I got in. They took me to the hospital. I was put on a Form 1, which we've talked about what happens when you go to the ER. I was admitted to the ward. Again, I don't remember a lot of what happened. I know that I was highly suicidal. I think at that point I was put on 1-to-1 with security because I wasn't prepared to let them stop me. Or was I? No, that's not the time. A few times. So at that point, I was on the main ward. And around that time, I was also experiencing some GI upset. And I didn't understand that when I was stressed, because it was a new thing, it's now been diagnosed as irritable bowel. But when I'm stressed, my GI tract goes really out of whack. And so while I was on the ward, I had some upset stomach. And their protocol, because of the SARS incident and with C. diff and all those wonderful diseases that have been going, sarcastic obviously, but all those diseases going around, they had me contained to my room. Well, I came out and told them that there's not a problem. It's stress related. It's not that I'm sick. There's no bug, but they did the stool sample. They sent it off, but they said until it comes back clean, I cannot leave my room. This threw me, as a trauma survivor, threw me in a panic. So I told them about this. I said, I can't deal with being trapped in my room, because to me, I felt trapped. I'm not allowed to leave my room. I'm trapped. And that just set me off as panicked. I was already not in good space. So there's other things that happened during this day, but these are the important things. So there was one other important thing, but I'm going to touch on that on a different video because it needs its own video. But so I talked to the nurses, and at that point, they had moved me outside the nurses' station, and they had actually had me sit in a chair outside the nurses' station. And that was a really, the right thing to do, to, talk to me, keep an eye on me. And, when I got tired, I just went back in and I went into bed and I slept, and that was fine. And I tried to keep myself busy. I tried to do things. I tried to color. I tried to read, but there was only so much stuff they were letting in the room because they thought I was sick, even though I wasn't. And so the next day, because I was still trapped in my room, I went to them and I was like, this is getting worse. I'm starting to have flashbacks in some body memories, which we'll talk about what they are in another video. But I was experiencing all of that, and I said, this is making me feel more suicidal. And they weren't grasping that. And the staff wasn't hearing me. And I remember sitting in my bed and feeling more and more panicked and feeling more and more overwhelmed with the feelings and the sensations that were going on in my body, and thinking I need to get away from this. And then I ended up, and this is definitely a trigger warning, so please turn it off now if you're going to be triggered. But I ended up hanging myself on the ward. And it was shift change, so technically the nurses shouldn't have found me, but I guess I wasn't meant to die because the nurses hadn't started shift change yet, and somehow they ended up coming in and finding me unconscious. So they sent me downstairs, I guess. I don't know. I went to another ward for a little bit, and then I came back up and went to the PICU, which is a horrible place to be. So that's kind of my experience with Lakeridge Health Oshawa. And now when I go there, they say that I can't go on the main ward because I freaked them out. Well, they didn't listen to me. I said that you're stressed, like you're making me more upset by keeping me locked in my room. The funny thing was, when that medical stuff came back, it was clean. It's irritable bowel and is caused by stress. So, I ended up, well, there's so many other stories I could tell from this, or just tell the whole thing. I'm trying not to make it too long, but when I was in the PICU, which is a psychiatric intensive care unit, which is kind of like there's like 8 rooms. I can't remember now. It's been a while, well, 2.5 years since I've been there, and I will not go back to Lake Ridge Health Oshawa because of this incident. They don't help you there. It's all like plexiglass. Your wall is plexiglass, and you got a camera in your room and a bed. That's it. And the bathrooms are dirty and disgusting, and you have a prison toilet, and it's dirty, disgusting, and you only get crayons. You don't get anything. It's pathetic. Your visitors, you get 15-minute visits at very specific times of the day. I don't think any of that is therapeutic. I get what they're trying to do in a way, as a mental health care provider, but in the same sense, it's not therapeutic. As a client and as a mental health worker, it's not therapeutic. Even though I understand what they're trying to do, it's not good. So, yeah. So what happened was my psychiatrist was away, and when she came back, she said to me, and she legally can't say this, just so know your rights, but I said I was going to fight the form because I know that the only way to get out of the psychiatric intensive care unit is to not be on a form. If you're not in a form, they can't keep you there. And I didn't want to be in the intensive care unit because it's gross in there and you can't do anything and it's not productive to healing. And once a crisis is over with somebody with trauma, it's over. And as long as you're not going to keep me locked in my room, it's not going to be an issue. So I said, I want to fight the form. And she comes to me and she says, if you're going to fight the form, then I'm not going to be your doctor when you get out. Well, she can't say that. That's completely illegal. And I could have sorry, this is bouncy. I could have went to the College of Physicians and Surgeons over that, which I didn't know at the time, but I learned when I was taking my addictions and mental health training. But I was really upset still about everything, and I was not doing a whole lot better, but I just knew I didn't want to be in the intensive care unit because it's absolutely gross and not productive to healing. So Dr. Sagi, who is the head of Lake Ridge Health Psychiatry Department, came in and said, so I hear what Dr. So-and-so said to you. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, do you want her to be your doctor? And I'm like, no, I don't. So he ended up taking over my care, and he still does my care today. Not that I need much. I see him once every 4 to 6 months. And that's just to renew my meds because we really don't talk about anything. He doesn't do anything for me. He doesn't try to help me. He doesn't do anything. Psychiatrists are pill pushers. That's all they do is renew meds. I don't see any other purpose for them. For my 30 years of experience with them, I really don't see any other purpose for them. Except when you're in a hospital, they give you about 10 minutes of their time at most. And again, that's just to assess, are you on the right medication? Should we up it? Should we drug you more? And again, I don't like medication. So I am on the absolute bare minimum of what I can be on. So they ended up putting me with another doctor. And in that, I got myself discharged. I went to Toronto and went to CAMH and went to their women's unit. Wait, no, I went to their mood disorder unit, and it was the best thing that happened to me. For the very first time in my life, the psychiatrist validated my pain and my abuse and everything that I was going through. Nobody had ever done that before. I cried for like an hour after that, and it was really healing and really good in this sense. And I started to come out the other side, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of time. These episodes don't just disappear and go away. So after some work, I realized, and looking back, I realized that it was because of burnout, because of everything that I'd been through with the new agency, and that I can't work for an agency that doesn't let me tell them no, and let me set my boundaries. If I can't set my boundaries, then I can't work there. Um, which really is frustrating because I really like being a PSW, but being a PSW has become unsafe for me because I can't set my boundaries, and my boundaries, when they are set, aren't respected. They pressure you and they try to manipulate you and talk you into um, doing what they want you to do because they're so desperate for PSWs. The thing that I liked with DHS was they didn't do that. And so I was able to have my boundaries respected. If I said no, ultimately they took no as an answer. And they were great that way. So thank you, DHS. So I hope this story's been helpful. I hope it's not been triggering for anybody. If you like this content, please subscribe. Be great if you could subscribe and hit the bell if you want to know when new content has been added. Also, if there's any comments that you want to leave, I'm open to that. I'll try to respond to all the comments. If there's something else that you want to see, I'm open to hearing about that, and I'll make videos on that. So please do add comments about that, and I will respond. And take care and respect yourself. Thank you.